It was a match for the ages. After the drama England and Canada produced on the same ground just 1 hour earlier, you would have thought it was impossible to replicate, let alone better, that level of intensity and drama. Then the Black Ferns and the ever unpredictable France say, hold ma bière. It's almost comical how good Saturday's second semi-final game was. From flawless finishes, individual excellence, undying unpredictability, all leading to a courageous comeback and a last-minute kick to win it. All on the shoulders of a player around whom so much of that French unpredictability has sprung. And ultimately, the overtones of the game were oh so French. One of the great things about an occasion like this is it often brings out the best of some truly world-class players. Teresa Fitzpatrick not only did nothing wrong, but it felt like there was genuinely nothing she did that was anything short of superb. La Petite Générale Pauline Bourdon showed once again what a truly remarkable game manager she is. Sarah Hibini, leading from the front, was simply immovable. But it's hard to think of anybody who stood up more in defeat than France's Gabrielle Vernier. Vernier was arguably also France's standout player in their poor game against England, but Saturday was proof that it doesn't matter if you're 5'4" and 10 stone, just as long as your shoulders are made of literal concrete. It's not only that, but she took her try superbly. You can see her here constantly scanning for the correct gap to run into, knowing that she has to get her timing spot on. She considers running to the inside of this post here, but Michaele Tou is in a great position, so she resists. Ménager carries, and Vernier spots her opportunity. With Rule folding around the ruck, focusing on Bourdon whilst also trying to avoid both the post and the referee, Vernier begins her run. Rule only spots Vernier at the last minute, leaving the French centre one-on-one with Bremner. It's a perfect line by Vernier, and she makes herself unstoppable this close to the line. It didn't take New Zealand long to hit back though. Before we look at Ruby Tui's try, let's have a brief scan over just how NZ manipulated the French defence earlier in the game. Ponsonby makes a huge carry and France are immediately on the back foot. New Zealand's speed of ball is rapid and Demont spots that with Vernier in the far wing, France are short numbers in the middle. She calls for the ball and sends Roos straight through the middle, but France stay calm. They have a two-woman backfield so Ménager can stay wide, Drouin can linger at the back and Boulard can come in and make the hit on Roos. Now, let's fast forward a little. Bourdon clears with Drouin sat in the pocket, once again ready to manage the backfield. Woodman takes this kick brilliantly, and it takes 3 French women to finish her off, including, once again, Vernier, who contests the breakdown. Once again, Demant spies only 2 French backs in the front line, so calls for the ball at the back, and they feed Holmes early. Instead of trusting the drift defence to cover the outside, Boulard comes into the line. Because let's face it, nobody fancies a 1v1 tackle opposite Ruby Tui. But when Holmes sticks it on the boot to turn it into a straight foot race, you can tell that Drouin wasn't expecting Boulard's decision here. If Drouin wanted Boulard to join the line, she probably would have stood around here. Instead, she's nowhere near the bouncing ball and Tui is straight out the blocks. Boulard is under a whole world of pressure and Tui's finish is next level. She knees it on, then anticipates the bounce of the ball and falls forwards on top of the ball. This way she can get her hands in position to ground the ball straight down so it doesn't cross the dead ball line. This slight miscommunication between the French backfield opened up a world of space for Holmes to place the ball perfectly and Tui to pounce. We previously speculated elsewhere on this channel that Wayne Smith has been deliberately holding back a kicking game, playing with one leg behind his back, if you will. They've proven their attacking game's good enough to manipulate defences and backfields worldwide, but now they're finally leading into exploiting that space in behind, and don't be surprised if they kick more and more as Saturday's final goes on. But they do need to be careful though, or they may end up with more situations like this, where Boulard is correctly positioned and replies with a perfectly struck 50-22. On the flip side of that though, we did also see Kendra Coxage going slightly mad for the last half hour of this test match, randomly taking 4 quick taps. Evidently she was certain that if the Black Ferns played a high-tempo game, France would not be able to live with them, even if she kicked it away afterwards. You could argue that on 3 of these 4 occasions it somewhat backfired, although on one of them it definitely paid off, granting NZ the opportunity at 3 points, which Demant converted. You get the impression that even with kicks like this, which don't look like much, they're doing it with the intention of isolating their opposition and tiring them out. Every time Coxage box kicked throughout the game, it was because they'd already played with the French backfield's positioning and opened up obvious space for NZ to advance, leaving France really scrambling. The Black Ferns clearly believe that they're the fittest, most equipped team to run from one end of the park to the other, and they could really use this fast-paced kicking game to disorganise and tire out the Red Roses pack this weekend. Tired oppositions are more likely to give away silly penalties like this and give the Black Ferns more chances to get into the 22 and more chances to score. Not to mention, this was a clinical 22 entry by New Zealand, which is, unlike them really, a brutal maul to start the set, a tireless carry by Roos, and then this. Leti Inga bumping her mate to the floor and then clearing Sosha into the upright. Means she's just slightly disconnected from the rest of the French defence, and Fitzpatrick can fill the gap between her and Philippon to flop over the line. Now, you know how they say you never know which French team's going to turn up? Yeah, I think they should start asking when the French team is going to turn up instead. To concede 15 unanswered points and open an 8-point losing margin in a World Cup semi-final is huge, and to think this may have just been France's scheduled implosion probably wasn't too far-fetched. At this stage, the bookies were probably offering 50-50 odds for France to either sub on Francois Tranduc wearing a full onion as a hat and start doing backflips, or to just switch on and score another try through relentless Roman. What France and New Zealand's next opponents, England, have in common is a brutal pack with endless bulldozing carriers. Medusa Fowl, so-called because she's named after what you do when she's running at you so you can avoid tackling her, like full, yeah. Clara Joya, whose name translates to the one emotion you don't feel when she's at full flight towards you. If New Zealand can use their backs and their kicking game to run you into the ground, France and England can show you an equally effective tactic. Fight fire with forwards. France drive into midfield, perfectly positioned to hit up the area's defensive line where the forwards end and the backs begin. Undiai steps to the outside of Rule and just totally ignores her. She instead barrels into the fly half Demant, who gets her to ground but not before Undiai can make an offload. And as Hermé carries, Coxedge barks at her forwards to fold around and cover the right hand side. Bremner and Roos get around, but Escoedo and Undiai make absolutely certain it's only these two getting round. They confine Hedini and Connor to the breakdown, going far enough beyond the ball that Simon would have to run all the way round this extended ruck, which isn't happening. With Roos still sprinting across in desperation, Menegé steps inside, meaning she has any number 8's dream. A free run at the gobby scrum half within 5 metres of the try line. With none of these forwards available to help Coxedge, Menegé gobbles her up as a main course, with a side of 7 points, putting France only one behind and back in the game. It's outstanding by France, engineering positions whereby they can gun their biggest carriers against New Zealand's halfbacks. If England can generate good ball and get the likes of Sarah Byrne and Marley Packer into situations like this in the final, you can only anticipate they'll be really hard to live with. But if we're going to drill down to where the game was eventually won and lost, we'd better have a look at those exhilarating last couple of minutes. Boulard comes up with the turnover and Bourdon looks to capitalise. With the Black Ferns still reorganising, she looks to interest Fitzpatrick and then sling it wide. As Mayans shapes to feed Vernier and create a 3v1, the Black Ferns do a terrific job of defending it. Fitzpatrick fades onto Vernier and Stacey Flula comes up from miles away to shut off Philippon, forcing Vernier to step inside back towards more black jerseys. France carry on and recycle, and then Drouin isolates Bremner, allowing Deschai to offload, allowing France to continue their momentum. They keep playing from one touchline to the other, hoping to eventually tire out the Black Ferns or catch somebody out of position out wide. They once again utilise Deschai as an edge forward, who takes Fitzpatrick out the game and offloads. Now, I know France make a lot of ground out of the situation, but you have to commend the Black Ferns' defence with just a couple of minutes to go. When you're 8 minutes into a defensive set, with 78 minutes into a semi-final, and have players all over the shop, you can afford to lose this ground. With Fitzpatrick out of the game, Hedini absolutely hares across the field. Woodman takes plenty of steps back because the last thing she wants is for Philippon to pass to Boulard and to have to make a 1v1 try-saving tackle against one of the world's most clinical finishers. Woodman eases off Philippon, tempting her to go herself, allowing Hedini to make a fantastic tackle covering back, leaving Tui still on her feet to make a good hit on Drouin. The offload goes loose and Fitzpatrick and Hedini secure it for the Black Ferns. Now, I know this was called back for the infamous last-minute penalty offence, but if not for Woodman being so calm under pressure, France may not have even needed a last-minute kick. The destiny of this semi-final was left at the feet of Caroline Drouin. It's the mark of a truly timeless World Cup semi for it to come down to one kick. One stroke of the boot being the only thing that could possibly separate these two sides. After some moments of brilliance and some moments of madness, on this occasion, Drouin didn't bring home the goods. You have to feel for Drouin, but you also can't help but feel like the most deserving team are going to the World Cup final. A game like that leaves any neutral feeling like the sport has well and truly peaked. But these two were merely competing for a spot in the biggest cauldron of drama World Rugby has to offer. After spending 4 years of thinking this World Cup was England's to lose, the Black Ferns have clawed it back and set up a final that's almost impossible to call. But if this semi-final has taught us anything, it's that it's foolhardy to think that this World Cup has ever got as good as it's going to get. As the two best teams on the planet lock horns for the Rugby World Cup final, expect nothing less than another match for the ages.
so either